Thank you, gentlemen. The theme of today is constitutional rights, the restoration of constitutional rights. I'm here to talk about another right. Legislation that I've introduced would repeal the amendment that we added to the Virginia Declaration of Rights back in, allowed the voters to add to the Declaration of Rights back in 2006 as Section 15A, which is otherwise known as the Marshall-Newman Amendment. I want to be first of all clear about what this legislation would not do. First of all, it would not legalize gay marriage or civil unions. That a ban on that is still in the Virginia Code. All this does is frees up the legislature to act, and I would submit that that may very well be necessary in the future, given the Supreme Court has taken this as accepted cert on 2 different cases, which they're going to decide sometime this December about whether or not Virginia's constitutional ban and whether or not our statutory ban are constitutionally valid under our right to privacy. In terms of the underlying merits, from my point of view, marriage is about loving, committed couples making a lifelong promise to take care of each other in good times and bad. And I think denying somebody a chance at that happiness of being married just because they're gay is hurtful. And I think it's wrong, and I think it's something that we ought to reconsider. I think public opinion has changed significantly since this was passed back in 2006. In 2006, when national polling was done on this issue, only 40% of Americans supported the right of gay and lesbian people to marry. Since then, polling has moved to up to 52 to 54% in the last election cycle. Polling that was done in Virginia just months ago found 65% support if you include civil unions. So public opinion has changed even in this state, and it's changed very rapidly. 4 different states passed voter referenda recognizing gay marriage this last election cycle. 19 states, including the District of Columbia, recognized some form of relationship between gay and lesbian couples. Virginia, from my point of view, is increasingly isolated on this issue. I think in the future it could become a problem for us attracting business. To some extent it already does. I personally know people who have left Virginia and moved because they're not allowed to express their love and have it recognized in a legal way. And I think this is something we need to reconsider and give the General Assembly at least the authority to recognize and do something about in the event that the Supreme Court chooses to strike down legislation due to our right to privacy. None of this affects anything involving people's religious views, and none of it requires any church to recognize anything. It's about, from my point of view, it's about freedom, which is what the Virginia Declaration of Rights is all about. And I would hope the committee would support this amendment. And of course, if the Supreme Court were to act in a way that I don't expect them to this June, this of course would have to pass again next year in order to make it on the ballot. So we still have our options open depending on what the Supreme Court does. But this at least would give the legislature options, because this is, I think, a rapidly evolving issue that we're going to need to deal with probably in the next, if not the next session, very soon.